Barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum barakatuh, everyone. Thank you for joining us here again live. We are live on our three social media platform. You can see us live from our Facebook group at TP Parenting Academy. And also, you can join us live on our YouTube channel at TP Parenting Academy. So, welcome again to this wonderful session. It's going to be a wow section because trust me, our guest speaker is a specialist. She's good at what she does. She's a typical example of an embodiment of what it means to experience what we call positive parenting. And I believe that we for us to know what that means, we actually need to bring in somebody that experienced that positive parenting technique. So we can actually that can actually reinforce our beliefs and our attempts to try to embrace the positive parenting approach. So while we are waiting for people to join us, I'd like to go through the bio of our guest speaker. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you all for joining us. I'd like to go through the bio of our guest speaker before she arrives. So, coming. So our guest speaker is the person of Mutia Olagoke. She's the founder of Egret Media Concepts. And the topic before her is positive parenting advantage, the best gift to your child. Positive parenting advantage, the best gift to your child. And you agree with me that one of the best gifts we can give to a child is to give them that positive parenting advantage. Like I said earlier on during the early morning session, that the knowledge that we have, the skill that we equip ourselves with, will automatically become an advantage for our child over their peers tomorrow. So it's more about the things that we equip ourselves with as a parents, the skills that we have that will translate to the level of the quality of relationship we have with our kids. So Mutia Olagoke is going to be the one to handle this session for us. And trust me when I tell you that she's going to do an amazing job to this. Get ready, get your writing materials ready, get your phone charged. I believe that your phone must be charged by now. And make sure that you're in a place that is noise free. That way you can get the best out of this session. So I'm going to be reading the bio of our presenter, our speaker now. Mutia Olagoke is a social entrepreneur, a communication expert, a publisher, writer, a public speaker, an educational consultant, a coach, and a teacher. She runs Egret Media Concepts, a media company with a niche in education and self-development. She's passionate about inspiring self-development in children and adults. As a public speaking and creative writing coach, she enjoys teaching and helping people discover and communicate their awesomeness to the world. That's just amazing. So what she basically does is to help you connect back to your awesome self. She's one of those that believe that we all have that awesomeness in us, but we need to connect back with it. So she help you discover your awesomeness and also help you communicate them effectively to the world. So while we are still waiting for her to join, I'd like to announce the fact that Mutia Olagoke is she's a specialist. She's the one that she's founder of Egret Media Concepts. Thank you for joining us, Ma. We are honored to
Thank you
have
for
you.
having me.
See that fine face. Glow, glow, Gloria mommy. So thank you for honoring our invite, Ma.
Thank you
Jazakumullah
for
khairan.
having me. I mean,
I'm
it's
sure, like
such
I
an
told
honor.
other people, that they're going to get that awesomeness today. I was talking about your I was reading your bio, and I was saying that one of the things that you do is to help people connect back to their awesomeness and communicate it effectively to the world. It's not enough to just be awesome, but how do you communicate and carry yourself is one of the things that you do. And we are glad to have you here. We feel honored to have you amidst us.
I am honored,
So
and for some
I would also
reasons,
like
I can't
to
find my. I'm honored to be here.
you can find your words.
I found it.
I think
I
the
couldn't
network
find
is
my
not there.
notes. Now I
Okay.
found it.
Yeah. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. So one of the things that I also mentioned that Egress Media is one of our sponsors. May Allah bless Egress Media. And one of the things that Egress Media does is that what they are dedicated to inspire confidence and communication savvy great mind through their self-development programs, capacity building, and product and consultation. So if you are looking for ways to communicate your own awesomeness to the world, you want to develop yourself, you want to build capacity, Egress Media is a place for you to go. Believe me, they are your one-shop stop for all everything that has to do with awesomeness. You're not going to regret being there if you join them. So another thing that I'd also like to mention is that Kim Baby Care is also part of our sponsors. May Allah elevate Kim Baby Care. And what they do at Kim Baby Care is that they nurture they help us nurture our sprouts with their variety of products, safe and healthy products, skincare and health essential products by helping them achieve what sample skin and skinny soft hair. So if you are looking for your child, you are looking for ways to help your child, that your daughter, that your boy that used to cry when you are brushing their hair, that used to cry when you are combing their hair, you have not gotten Kim's care and you Kim Baby's care. Once you get Kim Baby's care, you are going to see drastic change. I also use it in my home. I think I won one of our gifts earlier during Ramadan, and it was part of the parcel that I got from her. And honestly, it's an amazing product that you can get for your child and for yourself. It's not only for baby, you're also a baby, so you can treat yourself as a parent too by getting Kim Baby Care's products. So I'd like to leave the screen now and allow our speaker have the floor. I have my writing materials here. I'm going to be jotting. So get
Okay,
your
start.
own too.
Before you
Now,
go, the audience is what? Mixed? Both Muslims and Christians or just Muslims?
we have Muslims amidst, we have Christians amidst us, but majority of our audience are primarily Muslims. I mentioned that during our earlier conversation too, that
Oh,
so
okay.
many of the things that we say will be influenced by the majority of our audience.
Okay, because I needed to be sure before I start. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone here. Everyone of my audience, like Sister Shakira said, because majority of the audience are Muslims, I'm going to be giving my class from not even a class, my session of my point from the perspective of Islam, especially because we as Muslims do not have opportunities like this, like Christians and other people do. So I will beg any Christian in the audience to excuse some of the to excuse some of it. I will for sure what the conversation is going to be relatable for you. However, unlike Christians and people who are, secular, Muslims do not get opportunity where parenting, particularly positive parenting, especially positive parenting, is spoken about or talked about from the perspective of Islam. So pardon us, but I promise you, there's no Arabic. We're just reading English translation. So, talking of the topic that I've been given is positive parenting advantage, the best gift you can give your child. Now, for all of us here, majority of us, I like to assume that the youngest parent here was probably born in, well, maybe I'm sure we probably have parents born in the 2000, right? 2000 babies are what, 22 years this year. So you may have a couple, or maybe that have kids, toddlers, in 2000. So for the majority, many of us are millennials, right? I believe this majority of the audience here are millennials, people born before the year 1997. And for those of us born before that time, positive parenting wasn't popular with our parents. What we know, and it's still very, very common right now, is the African parenting way. Like that's what majority of our parents use. And for many of us, that's what we're using right now. And so some of the ideas that will be shared in the conference may be a little bit odd for some people. I mean, you're looking like, we should not beat them. We should not shout at them. When my own father shouted at me, did I die? Am I not the one that's here today? Is it not because of that shout that I am like this? Right? That's the energy we all bring. And I must say that as at 2012, 2013, I shared the same energy. My perspective of that energy changed in 2016. And it wasn't even about parenting for me. I wasn't parenting any child at the time, parenting anybody. Okay, well, I was parenting some things, and it was hard. Parenting things is hard. It's hard. It was hard. I mean, Mela, make it easy for all of you during it out there. Make it easy, but it was hard at the time. But I actually had to I stumbled upon positive parenting as a teacher. So I was teaching some kids in Keke Agege. And for those people who know Lagos, particularly if you know this side of Lagos, the Alimosho, Agege side of Lagos, you know that Keke is probably one of the roughest places. Of course, they are tushing them up. They are not so far from Ogba, so but Keke is rough. Keke is rough. So imagine kids. Majority of the children that I was teaching at the time were children of market women. Most of their parents were selling the Agege market. Most of them are, I don't know, it's their cousin, it's their father. You know, it was just rough. If you enter that side of Lagos, that side of Lagos is like Agbole. What's Agbole for you? You know, it's like when you're traveling and you enter Ibadan, you see those brown rooftop and you're making guests of Ibadan. I don't know why you're making guests of us. That's the same thing as you traveling to Europe and see all those old houses. Anyways, those houses that you think are village houses, those are the kind of houses, some of the houses you will find in Keke. And that's where some of those kids grew up in. And it was hard for me because these are kids that big English doesn't scare them. You have to beat, even if you want to beat them like this, you need to use your mozu to beat them. It was just hard. And because but I teach soft skills. I was teaching them public speaking. Public speaking is not something you can beat somebody. You can't beat someone to speak up. You can't beat somebody to be confident. It is something you have to motivate and inspire them. So it's an internet thing. And so I realized that all the shouting and the threats were not working. In fact, the shouting, the threat were making their lack of confidence worse. So the question was, the way of our forefathers or the way that we know how to teach is not working. And before that time, I think 2014, I'd already started to teach teachers how to teach writing and how to teach public speaking. And I realized that I'd taken a course from the University of Oregon on how to teach English language as a second language. And I saw that all their methods were just different from all our methods. So it was time for me to just turn around. So going back to my note from the teaching course, and then coming into the reality of the children I was teaching and just how ineffective it was. Ineffective. Negative reinforcement was ineffective. So I started to do research, and a lot of times people were calling me on classroom management and how I was able to help children build confidence within a span of weeks. And I found that sometimes I'm teaching some children in Ikoyi and it is easy. I'm doing some even in the same Agege, and it's a lot easier than some children that are just 100 naira bike away. So what can I do that regardless of the kind of kids I have in the class, I'm able to truly help the children blossom into their awesomeness? And that's why I took a Commonwealth class about understanding the learner. And then I stumbled upon this amazing course I did on positive parenting. In fact, in the course, I think that the first week, they usually will send the notes. It was an email course. So they'll send the notes, and I will read the notes, and I'll be like, these Oyinbo people. Did anyone? How do you say that in English? Like, these Oyinbo people are just, what kind of smesme? I think that smesme is a what to say. Like, it's just like, so a child is crying. I should not carry the child on my laps. I'll be saying, why are you crying? What is doing you? What is doing you? Every week, when they send the note, for the first 3 weeks, was a 6 week course. For the first 3 weeks, I will look at the note and be like, it's like something is wrong with these people. So this child is frustrating my life. I should have to say, oh, why are you frustrating me? Are you frustrated too? Well, let us frustrate ourselves together. But then I realized that it wasn't working. Oh, the frustrating ourselves together was not working. Sometimes I will wake up every morning, if that class was on Thursday, and my chest will be like, ah, not again. Like every week. And one of the things that I know as a soft skill person is the only thing I can control is my emotions. And if I'm waking up every morning, I'm feeling bad, like from the moment I wake up, the entire day is gone. I'm moody throughout the day just because of that one class. I needed to do something. So I went back to the notes again. I'm like, okay, I'm going to try this Didier method that they are saying we should try. And wallahi, I stopped shouting. I stopped beating. I now became somebody that will be counting down. Can everybody please sit down? And I realized that I started to hear the children. Before that time, I wasn't hearing them. I started to hear their mumbling. I started to hear words behind their noise. And I did this, committed to it, because you see, when you say when one method is not working, you choose another one. And I was committed, because it's a commitment. Sometimes you want to, then you remind yourself, okay. So, and every morning I'll remind myself. When I get there, there's no amount of shout. And, at that point, I'm like, oh, no, nothing has meaning except the meaning you give to it. When they shout, you want to understand stuff. And by the end of the second term, or by midterm of the second term, I was frustrated first term, so I changed my method second term. By midterm of the third term, I remember entering the class. And the children were like, oh, yeah, don't shout, she's here, oh, yeah, shh, 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 shh. And they were keeping themselves quiet. And I stood in front of the class and I was like, hey, what is going on? I didn't enter with a cream. I didn't say I am here. Just my presence alone, and they all kept quiet. The same set of children. This is the same class where one Opelenge child looked at me and said, that witch have come again. That same class. It was the same children who were shutting themselves up. Don't make a noise. Don't make a noise. What was the difference? Well, it was positive parenting. It was me, stop shouting, stop insulting the children in my own frustration, coming to the awareness of that these children are human beings too. Their noise is a communication of something. Their disrespect is a communication of something. Their lack of work ethics is communicating something. Everything that frustrates a teacher in them or frustrates a parent in a child is communicating something. So, for instance, they don't do their assignment. It's a communication of lack of work ethics, lack of understanding of what is needed for them to be better. What do? I need to sell them on the idea that, see, this homework is not going to, whether you do it or whether you don't do it, it will not remove my salary at the end of the month. The person who stands to gain by doing this is you. This is for you. So I went from treating the lack of homework as an insult to me to understanding that if the child knew better, if this child knew that this is good for him, this is about him, this is for him. If this child is sold on the idea that this is me, this is for me, everyone here is here in my interest, the child will do better, and wallahi, they did better. Now, for us as parents, what lessons do we want to take away? So let's gather the lessons. Positive parenting is an advantage to your children. And there are so many things in the history of Islam that is about positive parenting. In fact, when people first hear about positive parenting, we look at it like it is not in the religion. The religion is firm. I don't know what religion you are, whether you're a Christian, you're a Muslim, all religions, particularly these religions that follow the book. The religions that follow the book are very pro-positive parenting. For us as Muslims, one thing that made me like, okay, I'm going to try this was when I read the hadith, that the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam never beat a child. He never beat a child. There's no record that the Prophet beat anybody younger than 10 years old. No record. I don't even know if he beat anybody younger than 15. But let's even assume that the demography for child is somebody who has not bulug. And what's the average age of children bulug? Between 10, 11, 12, 13. I bulug at the age of, I became matured. Bulug means maturity, when you start your menses and you enter puberty. That's bulug. The Prophet never beat any child that has never beat somebody a child who has never gotten to the age of puberty. And that will differ for most children, but the average is 10, because there's also the hadith that says that you start teaching your children to pray at 7 and you start beating them if they don't pray at 10. So we're assuming that 10 is the age where you have permission to beat a child. So it means that for the first 10 years of a child's life, you do not beat them. And not beating, not scolding them. Like beating is scolding, right? Not scolding them in a way that hurts their emotions and make them feel the way that we know how we scold our kids. But we will talk about scolding. I have 30 minutes. I think I've used more than 15 of it. So what are the ways that can help us shift our mindset? Knowing that if you truly say that you even want to come from a religious angle, or well, for us, well, maybe that, in the other religion, spare the child and spoil the child, spare the rod and spoil the child is part of the tenets. But for us as Muslims, we do not have a record that a child be younger than 10 or younger than the age of puberty was beaten by the man whose legacy we are modeling our lives after. But that's difficult, because I have seen parents beat 1-year-old. Some people will beat their toddler like this. You yourself, you shout. Me, anybody, if you know me, if you beat a toddler beside me, I will scream, hey, child abuse. And you will tell parents, what are you beating the child for? The child doesn't even know. And they say, he knows. Look at his eyes. He's doing it intentionally. Really? So you mean your toddler will wake up and say, I am going to frustrate this woman. I am going to pour water everywhere. There's no child like that. There's no child. In fact, let's go quickly to the principles of parenting from the perspective of Islam. The first principle is children are born pure. And that's something that you should use to turn your mindset. You need to start internalizing this belief. Children are born pure. I do not care for those cultures where they say they born a child of Banje, they born a child in witch. People will look at the child who's probably suffering from some form of hair loss or alopecia or something, and say, look at her. Where, put a bit. And every time the child does something, and like I said earlier, everything a child does is a communication of something. Whether it's a lack of something, when a child keeps pouring something, keeps saying, stop going there, and the child keeps going there, there's something the child is curious about. There's something the child is trying to say by keep going there, that if you beat this child 5 times, he still keeps going there. What you need to sit down is like, is he deaf? Does he not recognize that place? And there's something missing that the child is that is obviously not getting, and no amount of beating. What beating does really for us, what beating does is to just traumatize our brain and to build, like when you beat a child and say, I will beat you finish until you learn the lesson. The child doesn't actually learn the lesson. Majority of us, from the psychological perspective, what we do is that we associate trauma to that experience, and that's why we don't go there again. It's not because we have learned not to go there. Sometimes you will see your child wanting to go there, the child will be looking at that place and be looking at you. Looking at that place and be looking at you. And knows to associate trauma to that place. Not that the child has learned the lesson. If that's the case, there will not be anybody seeing me again in this world. So it's not necessarily mean that the beating, I will beat the sense into the child. Most times you're not beating the sense into the child. You are majorly just beating trauma into the child, and the brain remembers. Yes, beating works, but it works from a traumatic angle because the brain remembers. When the child is going, the brain remember the last experience. The subconscious remember that last time we went there, they beat us tire. So let's go away. So what you have taught the child is if you go there, you will be beaten. You have not taught the child the why of not going there. And that's why you find out that the child will not go there, but it will go to another place. And then you're like, subhanallah. Maybe I beat you when you went there. Why are you going there? Because that new place, yeah, it doesn't have trauma associated with that new place. Children are born pure. The Prophet said as reported by Sahih Muslim, no child is born except on al-fitra. That is, there's this nature that we have, the nature of believing, the nature of of being upon true worship of God. And then his parents, it is his parent that will make him, whether he's a Jew or Christian or any other religion. But every child is born pure as a worshiper, the true worshiper of God. As an animal produces a perfect animal, do you see any part of its body amputated? So a child is born fully in that image of true worship of God. If you and I are doubting which one is the real religion, every baby is born upon whatever that real religion is. And that's what Sahih Muslim says. So no child is born to come and do you wickedness. No child is born to be like, we show this mama pepe. All of that are just exaggeration in our culture that is making us parent our children from a place of wound, from a place of our own trauma. Many of us are parenting from places of trauma. Your child is pure and they are innocent. If you misbehave, what you should look at is not him. Who to blame is not him, but the environment. Naturally, human beings, we hate taking responsibility for somebody else. But unfortunate thing for us as parents is that whether you like it or not, you have to take responsibility. Your child is like when you buy a new cup in the market. Somebody sent me this mug. Every child is like the present that was sent to me. It was after this mug was sent to me that somebody was washing it for me in the kitchen and broke this part. And something chipped it here. Too much usage has used the color. That's how children become as we handle them as parents. And that's why some people think positive parenting is letting the children be themselves. No, you can't let the children be themselves. Anything, if I had left this cup on the table without using it for the 2 years that it has been given to me, it will still not be like before. You will get back and find that a hand has died inside it. Cobweb is inside it. In fact, even dead spider will be there. And that's what your children will become if you don't do anything. Say, he's his own person, which is something the West is trying to propagate now. No, positive parenting isn't that you should leave your children to be their own person. Everybody is his own person, but we must take responsibility. And that's the second principle for us as Muslims. Parents are guides and role models. We are guides and role models. We are the ones to protect them from the cobweb building inside their brain. We are the ones to show them this: you are a cup. You are to be drunk from. You are not a jug. You are not a kettle. Don't put yourself on fire. You are a ceramic cup. You cannot be jumping from table down. You can't be jumping from the table to the floor like a plastic. You will break. That's what we as parents should be to every cup that is our child. Now, every cup is different. I'm sure some people have talked about that. But we are guides. And what did the Rasul say about that? Every one of you is a guardian and is responsible for his charges. The ruler who has authority over people is a guardian and is responsible for them. A man is a guardian of his family and is responsible for them. A woman is a guardian of her husband's house and children and is responsible for them. A slave is a guardian of his master's property and is responsible for them. So all of you are guardians and are responsible for your charges. You are responsible for your children, and your children are also responsible for you and your own responsibility, because if your slave is responsible for your property, then your children have a responsibility to you. So all this work, I was not meant to be born. I did not ask to be born. That is not in our parenting style. You are not parenting from a place of guilt. the child did not, you didn't have to be born, so I have to do everything. You didn't have to be born. None of us have the right to, none of us has to be born. All of us are in the same circle of no one has to be born, but we must take responsibility. So you're not positive parenting mean that you cannot talk to the child. You can, no, you have to help the child to not be misled because you're guiding. The next principle is that the essentials of upbringing are kindness and mercy. And this is the core principle of positive parenting. Kindness and mercy. Recognizing that this human being deserve kindness. I know they are your children and you love them. And you're like, oh, I love you. That's why I'm beating you. You beat your child until he has a mark on his body and you say you love the child. Even criminals, the criminals that are beaten, for us as Muslims, when you look at the Sharia, who are those people that are beaten? People who commit one of the 5 greatest sins. And for many of you beating your children, I think they want to die. They didn't even commit any of those sins. What are the 5 greatest sins? Shirk. They associate idols with God. They disobey their parent. Okay, that's a great sin. Disobeying their parent. But no, don't kill them. They steal, they murder. What's the 5th one? Okay, the 3rd one is they commit zina. Children don't do that. Kindness and mercy. It was narrated by Abdullah bin Shaddad that his father said, the messenger of Allah came out to us for one of the nighttime prayers, and he was carrying Hassan or Hussein. The messenger, and he was carrying Hassan or Hussein. The messenger came, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, came forward and put him down. Then he said the takbir and started to pray. He prostrated during his prayer and made the prostration lengthy. My father said, I raised my head and saw the child on the back of the messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam while he was prostrating. So I went back to my prostration. When the messenger of Allah finished praying, the people said, oh, messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you prostrated during the prayer for so long that we thought that something had happened or that you were receiving a revelation. He sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, no such thing happened. But my son was riding on my back and I did not like to disturb him until he had had enough. Beautiful. Beautiful. Some of us, if the child should sit too close to us like this, we push him. You're like cats. You'd like to, I don't like when people are touching me. You are parenting from a place of trauma. Touch is not a bad thing. Touch is not a bad thing. Human beings should like to touch. Everybody have their own circle of, what's the name of that circle? Where it's a personal space. For your children, you are part of their personal space. You have a personal, my own personal circle is like this chair, right? For your children, your chair is part of their own space. They have not learned to build personal space. And you are not going to teach them by pushing them. What you do to them is traumatize them. And you're building a circle of people who continue to push. Because when they grow up like you, their brain will remember every time a child's trying to argue, push the child. That's what you're recording in their subconscious. And then you're wondering why your children are struggling, or why some of us, let's speak for ourselves, why some of us are struggling with intimacy with our partners. We do not want anybody to touch us. You think automatically, your husband will want to cuddle and you will not push him away. And then you wonder, some people say, my husband is gum body. Why? This also comes from a lack in his own childhood too. The gum body came from a need of safety that he never got because maybe somebody pushed him away or somebody held him too tight or God knows what. But most of us, all actions are a communication of something. The question is, when your child is leaning towards you, what does the child want? Most times they want assurance from something. So when you push them away, you are telling them that there's no assurance here. You're telling them they're not worthy of assurance. You're pushing away safety. And these are things that positive parenting tends to correct. So positive parenting isn't just about not beating. It's about everything. You don't beat your children, but when you open your mouth to insult them like this, they will wish you were beating. When I was in secondary school, I went to a boarding house. And we used to ask ourselves, I remember, I think there's one or two, like, between beating or scolding, which one do you want your mom to do for you? And people would choose beating. Most people would choose beating. I remember that majority of us will say, if she can beat me and not scold me, I will choose beating. Maybe she will beat me and she will be going. But scolding, she will scold me throughout the day. These are things that positive parenting is trying to correct. You don't beat the child, though, but when you scold them like this, hey, 3 days later, the child is still wondering what's going on. In another direction, Aisha, the wife of Prophet Sam, said that a Bedouin came to the Prophet and said, you people kiss the boys. And the Prophet said, you people kiss the boys. We don't kiss them. The Prophet said, I cannot put mercy in your heart after Allah has taken it away. So this person came to him and said, you're always kissing your grandsons. Why are you kissing them? Because we don't kiss our own children. And the Rasul says that, well, unfortunately for you, I cannot help you. Obviously, I cannot put mercy in the heart that Allah has taken it away from. What does it mean? Kiss your children, hold them, show them mercy. That's what mercy is. Some of us will say, who kissed me when I was a child? That I will not be kissing somebody. I cannot kiss any child though. Well, I, as an adult, I learned to hug back, sincerely hug back in my 20s. No, because my mom, if you sit down beside her like this, she'll push you away. She doesn't want to be as well. When I now learned to hug, I started to hug every child I worked with. I would hug the child, hug the child. And every time I hugged them, I went back home. Whenever I go home to visit, I taught my mom to say, I love you back. Because I realized that, you know what, I'm doing this for me. I'm healing for me. I'm going to heal the generational wounds that have got me here. But I'm not doing it alone. I'm going to pass it on. Luckily, my brother is a Gen Z, and he's so lucky to have us go back home to reteach and to be responsible for raising him. And when you meet him and you say, oh, he's such a sweet child. He is a sweet child because by the time he was growing up, we already come into the awareness of, okay, my mom tried positive parenting. I must say, I salute my mom. Of the mothers of that generation, she tried. But there were some things she just didn't have in her to give. And this is where taking the parenting classes, coming to classes like this comes in, because none of us was born this way and we didn't have a pass on. The fourth principle of parenting in Islam is, where should you draw the line for your children? And this is key. And this is why some people get it wrong with parenting. I see parents waste opportunities they should have used as learning moments with their children. They waste it. And they start saying, maybe, and they start making excuses, and then that value, an opportunity to teach the value has gone. Another thing I see them doing that, because one of the things I will not do in front of my kids is to say, to abuse an adult in front of them. I have to draw the line. I can't. So somebody does something for a child, and right there in front of that child, you're scolding the person. You are questioning the person. Hey, my child said that you shouted or not. Is it true? Please, me, I don't shout at my child. Whether whatever that person did is justified, you have rubbished it for the child. You have rubbished that lesson. And there's so many things we do. To continue to give examples, will just take forever. Now, what the Rasul said is that verily Allah the Almighty has laid down religion's obligation, so do not neglect them. Even all the religion obligation we have comes with guidelines. Yes, God is full of mercy. He is merciful. But he also has a guideline. So your house must have guidelines. You must have values. We don't beat doesn't mean that a child can do whatever they like. And you see parents saying, that's how he used to do. Your child is biting other children on the playground and say, leave him alone, he's still a child. That's how he bites people. No, your child was not born a shark. So you have to call the child and tell him. It's an opportunity to tell the child, you are not a shark. You do not bite. You are a human being. And then another thing is that you're like, oh, Stam just said we should not be shouting on the children. Yes, you cannot shout on your children. But effective communication requires that there's a way you carry your tone when you want to teach something or you want to reaffirm something. You don't just say, why are you biting that person? Are you a shark? And then the boy looks at you and says, I'm a shark. I'm a shark. And then all of you start laughing at me. I say, stop laughing, I'm serious. You are not serious. Because that's not the sound. That's not the tone of a serious person. And your children can hear it. Your voice should be very firm. I'm telling you not to insult the child does not mean you cannot carry a firm voice. Watch the words you use. Doesn't mean that you cannot use words that will positively affirm that that nonsense is not allowed. Do not call your children stupid, yes, but you can tell them you are not stupid, but you just did a stupid thing. So he knows he's not stupid. Amon, you're not stupid. You're smart, but you just did a stupid thing that is beneath you. That's something. So don't come and say, they say we should not abuse our children. We should not call them names. We should not call them names, but we must label the things that they're doing. When a child is doing something that is reckless, you don't have to say you are a reckless boy. We're saying don't call them a reckless boy so that it doesn't internalize that and become even more reckless. However, you must point to him that that thing is reckless. You know what that does to him? The next time he's going there, his brain remembers that that thing is reckless. But they say we should not say anything. I don't even know what to do. We cannot even beat them. No, you can pull him back. You can remind him. You can set consequences for those actions that you can ask him. If he remembered that you told him 2 days ago he couldn't do it, you can put consequences in place that if you did it, what's the consequence? And he says, okay, the consequences are I don't watch TV for 2 days. Very good. Are we clear? Good. So next time he does it, you want to call him back. Did you remember that I said you shouldn't do it? Why did you do it? Oh, I forgot. You forgot. If you choose to forgive him because he forgets, you are going to make it a teachable lesson. I will forgive you this time because God forgives us when we forget to. However, if you do it next time, I will not forgive you. Oh, you have 3 strikes. This is your second strike. Don't waste the last one. Don't waste the last one. Be careful. You'll be surprised how careful the children will be. Then when you waste the last one, you must keep to your words. Don't say, I just forgive him this time. You can't keep forgiving him because otherwise the consequences that you've laid down will be useless. It will be useless. God himself has set boundaries. That's what the prophet said. God has set boundaries, so do not overstep them. He has prohibited some things, so do not violate them. About some things he was silent out of compassion for you, not forgetfulness. So seek not after them. And these are things that you need to teach your children. If you truly believe that we're created in the image of God, or God put his rule inside of us, you know that a lot of things that God holds to himself and holds himself accountable to, he also holds us accountable to it. And you can step down some of these divine laws and bring it into your home. There's something we sell here. Our best-selling canvas here is the one that has the family values, and it has all the values. And my clients use it to teach their children to stick to the family value. And every time the children break it, they remind them, what is our family value? This thing you just did, is it on the canvas? And the teacher says it's there. So why did you do it? You are part of this family and you must do your part. So positive parenting isn't about you letting your children get away with everything. No, we don't want to raise children who get away with everything, who are entitled and spoiled. We just want to raise children who have healthy emotional health, but who take responsibility, who do not happen to the world from a place of the wounds that have been unintentionally inflicted on them. The last principle is small responsibility for the small shoulder to make it big. Your children, one of the best ways to teach children to be an amazing human being, is to learn responsibility. You need to teach them to take responsibility. I see mothers doing it. They have 10-year-olds who cannot sweep. And you say, when we're holding day, my mommy was punishing me. The work was always too much for me. My first child. It's not a punishment to have the children take responsibility to cleaning after themselves. It's not a punishment to have your children contribute to making your family work by washing plates that we all use. It is not a punishment. And I think that because you were raised from it being a punishment, maybe your mom only made you wash plates and you always cry. That's why you think that having your children do it is like a punishment. And then you're going to raise children who cannot cook for themselves. If there's an apocalypse now and the world goes to an end and your child is left alone, they cannot survive. Doing chores, taking care of themselves, taking care of the family, taking care of the home is a life skill. And you must recognize that it is not a punishment. It's not even a chore. It is a life skill that you hold your children. Don't worry, when they grow, they will have maids. Whether they have maids or not, they should be able to survive by themselves. They should be able to survive by themselves. They should be able to survive by themselves. So, what is the advantage? And that's the last part. I'm really sorry for taking so much of your time, Sister Shakira, but I hope I'm not boring the audience. The last part, which is the last part of my topic, is the best gift you can give to your
You are
children.
not
When
boring
you
us, so you are not boring us. So you have amazing feedback here. People are just saying this speaker is powerful. This speaker is awesome.
oh,
So we still
thank
have we
you,
still, we still
people.
have we still have a lot to go. We have like almost 30. We are stopping by 4:30, so you still have time. I think you still have 40 minutes
Oh,
to go.
I thought that I was stopping at 30 minutes. I thought I had 30 minutes. See the way I'm rushing
No,
now.
no,
I
no,
thought
no,
I was
no.
wow.
You are
I thought
stopping
I
by
was
4:30. 4:30,
ah.
inshallah. So
Okay,
please just
so what's the benefit? Thank you so much, Mr. David Olawa. Thank you. So what's the benefit of positive parenting on your children? Number one, I'm assuming that somebody else is going to talk about the principles of positive parenting. I'm only here to talk about the advantage of it, right, Sister Shakira? So I don't have to go into the details of
please
all.
go into it, but just make it
I
brief,
love
man.
plan for that one, though. I need plan for that one, though. Okay, so what is positive parenting? Positive parenting, at first glance, it look so a lot of people think that positive parenting means that you can't reprimand your children. Like I've said before, you can. It basically means that parenting from an angle of positive reinforcement. It is parenting your children, discipline them with positive reinforcement. That's why when a child is crying, I mean, that is, in fact, I don't agree. Sometimes I argue with some of this parenting scheme, but I also agree that it is just wickedness that a child is crying. And all of you will sit down there and be like, I will beat you now so that you can have more things to cry about. Why? Why? Why would you beat a child that's already crying? And I say, if you cry now, oh yeah, keep quiet. You beat a child to they stop crying. Do you understand? And then we meet adults who do not know how to cry. They do not know how to label their emotions, how to deal with their emotions. And people are holding so much in and forgetting the people that they are because somebody has raised them to not validate. They never learned to healthily validate. We have people, some women will tell me about their husbands, and I'll tell them that it is unfortunate that your husband may seem to you the oppressor, but this poor man is a victim of a circle that has shut his emotion. He doesn't know how to be in a relationship. He doesn't know how to love. He doesn't know how to communicate. He doesn't know how to he doesn't know how to. One of the things I have been learning for the past couple of months, or actively, yes, for the past month, is what they call regulating my nervous system. The things that make me afraid, the things that make I'm actively reading classes, following people on how to regulate my emotions. Because if I do not learn how to regulate my emotions, not only can I not teach a child to regulate it, I will parent from a place of whatever it is I'm not regulating. I will parent from the place of my fear. I will parent for, please excuse me. I will parent from a place of my fear, of my pain, of my frustration. And what that does is that I will pass on the same things that were passed on to me to that child. Even worse, because the poor child will also have his father pass some of it to him. And we can't continue to do that. And that's why they'll say, oh, the madness. And then they will say the madness, that madness is always in their family. That's how his father too was mad. Yes, because he was raised with the same madness. That's how the father was mad, and he was raised with the same madness. And we cannot keep coming. You see, when they started to talk about generational trauma, I was like, this one Igbo people are come with English. Which one is generational trauma again? And Yoruba people will call it Ogundile. And you're like, what is there? You cannot go to the church or the mosque to pray it away. You cannot. This is something that you need to do the work. Yes, you have to pray it, because I would say that the prayer also gives clarity of where to work. But it is something you have to work on. It is something you have to work on. So we're not saying that you shouldn't reprimand your children, you shouldn't correct them. You have to correct them. You have to help them be the best version of themselves for themselves and the world. What you cannot do is to do it from a place of hurt, from a place of negativity, from a place of pain. No pain, no gain doesn't apply to child raising all the time. It does apply. There are some things your children may not want to do that is best for them. But to continue to inflict pain as a way of correction, you're only inflicting lifelong emotional baggages. So the first thing, so what are the benefits of it? Positive parenting approach results in helping your children build something that many of us did not have with our parents. I have it with my own parents because, like I said, my parents 70% of the time really tried. I think my father beat me maybe just twice, and my father is not somebody that keeps a grudge. He doesn't. He doesn't. There's also some things that some people's father did that every time in my self-esteem class, and people say my dad did this. I always look at them like, why? I don't judge them. I don't. It's hard to not judge their fathers, but then that will help my clients. One of the things benefits of positive parenting is stronger bonding between parents and children, because you see, with positive parenting, there's an opportunity for a lot of conversations. And like I said, one of the things that I learned from using it in my classroom, for instance, like it's not even with my children, in my classroom, is that I started to hear the children. I started to hear what they were not comfortable with. I started to hear that the grumbling wasn't that they didn't like me or they don't like work. It was just that they're tired and they could use 5 minutes before we start another class. Because you know how the classes are. We put one class after another and there's no room for a child to take a break. So what I started to do after that was that when I entered any class, I give the children 5 minutes. So if they're doing something else before I got there, I will give them, and they start to talk, and I say, okay, how much time do you need? I'm like, oh, they need 5 minutes. So I give them 5 minutes to finish it up. And at the end of that 5 minutes, I'm very strict about my 5 minutes because time is money. I will count down for them. Oh, you have 4 minutes to go. I say, no, I don't care. I don't care. Pack your book, next one. It doesn't help the children. And I realized that the mood that they bring into the class or they bring into any space affects the way that they do the next thing. So it helps me to listen to them. I started to listen to them more. I started to see that some of the comments they make has nothing to do with me. It is about them. I started to see that a lot of the frustration they are showing is not a frustration towards me, but them and their inability and the things they were unable to do in order to truly be present in my class. So I started to show empathy. And I started to listen to their stories. I stopped shutting them off. So when a child says, I started to pay attention. So it is very important that listening skills is part of it. Having empathy. And I think that's something I learned empathy from these kids. I started to show empathy for them and started to see the world from their own perspective. This child didn't do assignments, not because it doesn't want to. This poor child left school, went to the market, started to sell. They closed at 7 p.m., then got home. There were so many things to do at home. Some of these students don't even live with their parents. And so they don't even have time. Their time is not their own. I have worked with children on our debate competition that these children are put in this school because it is cheap, and they are somebody's housemaid, and the person say, okay, let him just be going to school. In the afternoon, she'll come and be selling the market. I've worked with children like that who had to wake up at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. to practice their presentation for the next competition because that's the only time she has to herself. I wouldn't know that if I didn't pay attention. And that's even other people's children. What about your children? What about my children? A lot of times we look at it like, what excuse do you have? Are you not privileged? Are you not checking? This afternoon, like this, they were asking me what would they eat for lunch. I mean, I was just like, the economy is bad. Nobody's eating lunch. and, then, and then after a while, I thought about it. I'm like, oh, if you just go eat whatever you like. I can't say that you can't eat lunch. If you're hungry, go eat lunch. I can't wake up one day and say $700. The people who have been eating lunch before cannot eat lunch anymore. That's not going to be fair. That's not going to be fair. So it is not just about the pockets of the person who pay for the lunch. It is also to have empathy and take into consideration the poor person who truly needs the lunch. So number one benefit of it is stronger bonding between parents and children. The approach will help you in behavioral development techniques that helps to increase trust. Because your child knows that you are a fair person. Positive parenting allows you to be fair, to show empathy, to listen. When your child knows that this is the kind of person that you are, the child will be open to you. Will trust, I trust my mom. I'll go home and tell my mom, like, I cannot tell my own mom, my own mom like this. If you tell her like this, she will blame you, Shani. That's the kind of parenting that all of us still want to keep doing. The same parenting that you and I would sit together in our 30s and talk about how it almost damaged us and how it's really, we are still unlearning the damages it left us. Is that still the same parenting you and I want to be boasting about? Like, no, I'm an African mama. Where your children, there was a thread on Facebook once and I almost cried for people. Their mothers dragged them to the hospital that they were pregnant because after their first menses, they didn't see the next one and their mothers dragged them. And I was shocked and I'm like, wait, I'm confused. Are you saying all your mothers are illiterate? Wait, even if they are illiterate as per book, did your mom never go through puberty? Because I remember that when I went, the first time I saw my menses, my mom was, I ran to my mom and I said, I saw menses. So I said, she has been waiting for this. And then she gave me her own part. And when I was going back to school, because I went to a boarding house, of course, my mom did not give me that talk. That talk, it was odd. It was odd. Those are some of the things she didn't do well. But one thing she did was that she told me that when I get back to school, there's a great chance that the menses may stop for a couple of months. I shouldn't worry. It is normal. Of course, my mom is a teacher. But it is not about my mom being a teacher. Every mother should know. I went through the same thing. So when people were, it was a long thread. And I was shocked as to the number of people who said their mothers drug. Some people's mothers disgraced them at pharmacies, at the neighborhood clinic, saying that, let me check her, I think she's pregnant. You have not seen her message. How do you drag a 13-year-old to a clinic and say she's pregnant? And then the child, and many of them were scarred for life. And you're wondering why that child will not talk to you when she starts to see boys. Till date, many of these sisters are scarred for life. They don't talk about anything with their mom. These are women who will go through childbearing, and then when they come to me for something, I'm like, wait, are you motherless? Why are you having? My friend had a baby 13 years ago. And I was the one calling her to say, because she was one of my friends. I think she was one of the first of our friends after graduation who had a baby. So everybody was calling her. And I remember calling her to say, what's up? Are you all right? What's going on? And she said she's been crying because the milk hasn't been coming out. And at first I'm like, wait, don't you have a mother-in-law? Don't you have a mother? She couldn't even talk to her own mother about it. And she was comfortable talking to me, a friend that's never gotten pregnant. And I was one who said, okay, let me ask my mom. And lucky, I was at home at the point and I had to call my mom. And my mom was like, okay, tell her to do this, tell her to do this, tell her to do this. And then I called back after a week and she said she did all the things my mother said and it worked. This girl's mother is a lot younger than my mother. She has a mother-in-law who's older than our mothers. And there was nobody she could call or trust enough to say the milk wasn't coming out. It is that bad for some of this trauma. And unfortunately, for many of us, we continue to raise our children with the same principles that have gotten us there. If you raise your child using the principle of allowing understanding, you will grow a stronger bond between you and them. Another thing is the second one, advantage of positive parenting for your children is that it's better, it allows for better and effective flow of communication, which I have explained earlier. Because one of the things you do as a positive parent is to create a safe space for that child to express themselves. Create a safe place for the child to feel comfortable, a place where they are not judged. And also, if somebody can tell me, oh, I did this. People's children will tell me stuff they're not going to tell their mom because they know that with Muchati it is a safe place. And how do I create a safe place that you may be doing wrong? One of the things that you do that is rubbishing whatever safe space you are creating is that, so your child tells you this thing. So I come to you and I say, oh, Shakira, too, after my messages like this, there's a time, maybe a week after, I always get very horny and my body will just be doing somehow. It was doing somehow. And then you know what most of us will say, how can your body be doing somehow? Dear. How can your body be doing somehow?
I won't be lying.
Your body will be liking boys. At this your small age. Face your studies. One of the things that I say is, Yoruba people say, Agbawa Bura. During ovulation, every animal in the animal kingdom, every animal, including us, is on heat. When somebody bulog, what the body is preparing for is sexual relations. So when a teenager comes to say, I feel somehow at this point, for us as positive parents, it is an opportunity to teach. This is an opportunity to teach self-control, an opportunity to teach the child awareness, what they can do to help the child understand. One of the things I tell parents of teenagers is that they are interning adults. Teenagers are not adults yet, but they're not children either. They are interning adults. And what does it mean to intern? They are learning. They are learning to be adults. So when they come to you in honesty, it's not even honesty, in their vulnerability, to say, I feel like this. We want to be like our mothers and rubbish it for them, shame them, so that next time they think about it, their brain remembers the shame. And I will tell you that it may work to prevent your child from promiscuity. What's the word? The child will not be promiscuity. However, I can tell you from experience, for myself personally, and a number of people that I work with, that when you say the child won't be promiscuous, the child can also become stiff to intimacy, even in a marriage, in a relationship that they should be relaxed. I mean, many of you are here, you know what goes on in your personal lives. People will say, oh, you're not taking a second wife. And you're like, oh, why is he doing this to me? It could also be that you don't know how to be intimate with people. And we're not talking about sexual relations here. Even the ordinary hold your hand, the ordinary hold space, keep positive space for someone to be vulnerable. Many of us don't know how to do it. And that comes from the way that some of the vulnerability we shared as teenagers, some of the things that confused us as teenagers were handled by the people who were supposed to have communicated better. But you cannot blame them too. They did not know better. My mom did not know how to tell me that, Muti, you are now doing menstruation, and what it means is that you can get pregnant. Instead of her to say that, so stay away from boys and don't let anybody kiss you, don't let anybody touch you, all the normal thing that she's supposed to say. Do you know what my mom said? My mom waited for my father to be honking at his car the day that I was leaving home. I was at home with my mom for over a week, that she should have sat me down and have this conversation, answer all my questions. No, she did not do that. When the day I was leaving for school, All the loads were already in the car. My father has started honking. She now called him, come, come, come. Now that you are now doing mercies, you are now a woman. Don't do erepa with boys. Bye-bye. I don't know what erepa with boys mean. She said it in Yoruba. What erepa meant for me, because our man what it meant was rough play. What rough play meant was jumping from tree. It was so she has not advised me. She has only told me to not jump from trees with boys, to not run around the class with boys, to not compete to dining hall with boys. She has not told me to not have sex with boys, because she didn't know how to communicate it. And I have many of my mates who eventually did not run around with boys. They did not jump from trees with boys, but they actually did extramarital affairs with boys because nobody told them. Nobody told them. Everybody just assumed that we were supposed to know. Of course, luckily for us, we had always PAD come to our school to tell us about it. We're lying. People who taught me about menses and taking care of myself were always PAD. They came to school. They used to come to our school once a year. They were the one who told us. They were the one who told me to calculate my ovulation. Like, even at university, I had friends who don't know what their ovulation means. Till date, you will meet people who are TTC, they don't even know what ovulation means. There are people who say, how do you get pregnant? Just get pregnant. None. They don't know. They don't know. It is always bad. Kota and Gambu people. And these are just one. This is just one of the many ways we fumble communication between our children, and we confuse them the more. The importance of communication is known to all of us. All of us know that it is important, but we're not doing it well with our kids, and it is not helping them. It is not helping them. Another thing that positive parenting helps, and this is my favorite part of it, especially because even with my work, it comes out, is higher self-esteem and happiness. One of the things with the ash way of parenting that we know, that we laugh about, is that it breaks your self-esteem. You are shamed. When they correct us with shame. Even the things that doesn't mean shaming. So I told you something in private. Oh, Sister Kini, when I'm on ovulation, I always feel like this. And then the next time I do something wrong, the next thing is, that's how you'll be doing something like that. That's how you'll be like that. And then you start to shame the child. That's why the child will not trust you to come to you. A child tells you, Mommy, you said I shouldn't take the meat, and I took it. I am sorry. The next time you are looking for meat, I know it will be Bola because she was the one who took it last week. It's not even be the child. See your eyes like as if you are going to, your eyes is looking like you're the one that took it. And then you're like, I don't take nonsense. So before they rubbish my parents, I will have rubbish it for them. Use things. There's no trust with the kids. There's no. I know some people are very lax with these trust issues. I know people that I know their children are taking things from them and they're not doing anything. They, as parents, are blindly trusting their children. And one of the things that I use is evidence. What are the evidence that this person has done it before? How do I help this person not repeat it again? Now, in a case where I'm suspecting this person did it, I'm not going to blame the person until I have investigated. I'm not going to be shouting from the door, hey! And then the way, I don't know all the plenty examples because my brain is not wired like that anymore. We break people's self-esteem. You want to correct a child who caught something on the floor, and you're like, Kidi, your hand will just be doing like alapake, rubber. You cannot carry anything. Is this only you? Everything you carry. You'll be interesting to know that maybe the child does have some neurological problem in their house. I have a terrible handwriting that is fine to some extent, and I've practiced. But people will just look at my hand and say, your hand is just there, useless hand. And these are things that your children will internalize. The things you call them, they will internalize it and it will affect their self-esteem. There are other things that we do. Sometimes you after you abuse it, you cannot do anything. Get out. I know that one that will do it. Get out. Let me do it, job. Positive parenting doesn't mean you have to do everything for your children. In fact, if they know me, even my staff know. If they do something, I'm not going to tell. I will show them what to do and make a correction. They will go and do it themselves. I'm not going to help any child to wash plates. I'm going to call you back to say, this plate you are washing, is not neat. Come and see how to wash it again. This is how to wash it. Oh, yeah, do the next one. But you know, some of us will think we are being nice parents. The child, the one she watched that they should not watch it. Well, let me watch this one quickly. You're not helping the child. You're not helping the child's self-esteem. Because you feel like, oh, I did not shout. They say we did not shout. I don't want him to make mistakes. He has to make mistakes. And one of the things he needs to learn about making mistakes is that mistakes are part of the process. Mistakes are part of who we are as human beings. We make mistakes. So you're not going to shame them when they make mistakes. Neither will you solve their problems for them when they make mistakes. Everything should be a learning moment. We are come here. I do not like what you have done here. This is what you did, and this is what you did, and this is how to do it better. What most of us do when we are correcting our children that affect our self-esteem is that we don't even talk about what they did. Have you noticed? Think about the last time your mother scolded you. She will go on and yes, rubbish. You just wasted my time. You just stood there since all these days. Since 4:30, you've been wasting time. So this is what you have done. This is all you, and that's what she's nagging about. She has not made one correction of how you should do it better. And if the child even has the audacity to say, okay, mommy, so how should I do it better? If I slap you, don't go and do it better. If they bully you, I don't do it better. One of the things that changed my life in elderly people is that I internalized the street language that says, who no, 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 no. Who no, 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 no. When somebody doesn't know, he doesn't know. When your child doesn't know, he doesn't know. Remember that we said that the child was born pure. What they don't know, they don't know. When somebody tells you, I don't know, stop saying, how will you not know? How will you not know? How can you be big like this and not know? He doesn't know. It was an empty cup when they born him. It is what you put there that you find there. After all these days that I've been showing you, have you really been showing her? Have you really been showing her? People, your child is in the kitchen just standing there, not doing anything. Just be looking at me. Just be looking at me. Just be looking at me. And then the child is looking. Some things, cooking for instance, washing plates, sweeping, they are practical things. They are not things you can learn by just looking. You will look. Then you tell the child to practice. But then you let the child to look for 3 months. And then the next one, you are the one cooking the jollof rice for the Christmas tomorrow. The child has never cooked anything before. And then she now cook rubbish jollof rice. She now say, you disgrace me in front of my friends. All these years that you have been looking at me, you did not see what I'm doing. At the end of the day, you have rubbished the child's self-esteem because she internalized that I am not good at doing anything. With positive parenting, you are teaching, you are showing, you are correcting gently. You are reinforcing, you are putting consequences in place, consequences that match what they do. Some people like this, ordinary plates, the child will break. They will beat the child, so it will be like, excuse me, did the child lose your 2 million naira? So, and then that child will now lose the 2 million naira. They now say, it's not the child's fault. It's that neighbor, Uncle Goni, his neighbor that steal it. What are you teaching? That plate is more important than money or what? So that parents do it. Some people would, and it's about you and what's a big deal to you. I've met some of my friends, I feel like eating their head on the wall. The things that they make babala about, they are like killing. But then again, our values are different. And then the things that matter to their children's self-esteem and they will not, those ones are not a big deal to them. So you yourself have to go back and check yourself. The children are not happy because if they make small mistakes like this, you will abuse them for 3 days. If anybody comes into your house, don't greet him or rubbish there. Why are you greeting him? Somebody that broke my plate yesterday. Somebody did something in the house, and I remember that for like 2 days I kept saying, you spoiled this thing, you that. And then after the last 3rd day, I told myself, I'm not mentioning it again. It has happened, it has happened. I cannot be using that same thing to be abusing the person for 2 weeks. It's not fair on the person. It has happened, moved on. Have we learned our lesson? We've learned our lesson. We're not going to do this again. Full stop. It's not now like 10 years from now. Remember that time you spoiled our fridge. You remember that time you spoiled the fridge. Even till date, if the child now have our own child, I say, I remember when your mommy spoiled the fridge. This thing affect the kids. So effective communication will definitely result in a happy environment at home and thereby boost the child's self-esteem. Your children know that your house is a safe place. They know that they can be open. They know that even if you scold them gently with love. It is an opportunity for them to learn. They are safe. My brother is currently doing NYC, but he likes to come to my house. He likes to come to my house because my house is a safe place. Because when he makes mistakes, I will talk about it. We will talk about it. I will tell him that this is what you have done, and we will talk about it. And I'm gentle with him. In his own mother's house, they are always fighting. They're always fighting. And then I'm the one saying, okay, mommy, what did you do? Okay, what okay, Kiloche? And I realized it's a communication thing. And then at the end of the day, the boy is just angry. And you know how all of you wanted to escape your parents' house to go and marry one brother. And that's how a lot of your children will feel too if you continue to treat your children the way that you were treated at home. Number 4 is to set a positive examples for your kids. Set a positive example for your kids. We are role models to our children. I know that you're not going to be perfect, but you must continue to try your best. You cannot expect your children to not be argumentative if they continue to watch you arguing with their father all the time. You can't expect your children to listen to correction if every time daddy says something, you have already said 3. Before daddy even finishes saying it, you have said it. And to the daddy is watching. You cannot expect your children to be respectful with fear because you're daddy. Because you're daddy. Because there will come a time that you will not be daddy on them. My father has come to that time. He is not the daddy of me anymore. In fact, I have become sort of like his guardian now. Me and my siblings have become his guardian. We're the one taking care of him. We're the one ensuring that he's making a livelihood. We're the one telling him, okay, it's time to come home from this business you have done. You need to set positive examples for your children. And some people will say, oh, I remember my father's biggest fear is that when he grows old, most children will take care of their mothers. That's what the narrative that they grew up with. But I told my father that my father has set us a great example of the way he took care of his own mother, the way he's taking care of his mother, the way my mother is taking care of our mother is an example for us. And my siblings and I are very particular about taking care of them because that's the family value that we have. We see them take care of their own parents. And I told my father that they don't need the people you are talking to in clubs that they are saying they are afraid. Those are people who have given their children examples that their children will follow. You have been an amazing father to us to the best of your abilities, and we will try to the best of our abilities. Many of those your friends that are discussing children take care of their mother, they did not take care of those mothers or those children when they had the power. So of course, the children do not have any reason or any loyalty to them. Luckily for you, we are Muslims, so even if you didn't take care of us, we will still take care of you. But you even did. You tried. You tried. If nobody is praising you, we will know that you have tried. And I see him take care of his mother. I see him with his brothers. I see him the way that he takes care of the things that he can take care of. And even invested his money in my mother's business. So he took care of my mother to the best of his ability. So he has set an example. One of the things I talk about, the way that I act, the way that I am, and when I'm telling the story of the person I become and how I got here, I talk about my mother a lot. And people will be like, oh, I want to meet your mother. Because my mother is an example of some of the many things I'm able to do. And one day I realized that my mother is actually my positive parenting role model. My mom was the one who allowed us to practice. My mom is an introvert who doesn't like talk. She doesn't want you to hug her. But she had talkative children and she allowed us. She will allow us, we'll create our house into a stage and we'll be making all the noise. And I asked her, how did you cope? I said, she just be looking at us like, I'm like a Joe. And she will be there clapping for us and hailing us. And that really helped our self-esteem to a great extent. Do we have baggages emotionally? Yes. But if you know me, some of my own emotional baggages that don't even come close to the ones that I have met people with. And I am grateful because my mom sets that example for us. This is an extrovert this is an introvert who had children who were extrovert. And my mom will allow us to bring our friends into the house. She will allow other people's children to be. She's not like, I mean, like Oreo. She understood that this is who we were. And she allowed us. to, and she's not controlling, she allowed us, and that allowing helped us to build positive examples, helped us to build positive self-esteem. And when you meet the way me and my siblings are with our friends and people, and you're like, oh, you people are so free, because we had an example of somebody who was free with us, not because she was like that, but it was our reality, and she shaped it for us. I'm really grateful that my mom did raise us by fire, by force, and introverts. Like most parents raise their children, I'm like, this, you two must be like this. And that's something I'll forever be grateful for. Number 5 is that positive parenting help you to reduce negative behavior. Lie, like I told you of the children that stopped behaving anyhow when I started to listen to them. When they realized, because every behavior, like I said, is a yearning for something, is a lack of something. So let me give you an example. There was a class I taught, and there was this boy, Abdul. He was my best student. He did his assignment on time, and he did everything, and I loved him. And then all of a sudden, that's why this boy did not do his assignment again. And for 2 weeks, I kept saying, Abdullah, what's wrong with you? Abdullah, what's wrong with you? And then one day I was going home, and I was reflecting on his behavioral change. And it clicked to me that this child, we have been, because I always shout on other children, and I always call their name, and I'm always on their neck. Children can't tell the difference between attention, negative attention and positive attention. To them, attention is attention. So he realized that I didn't show him that I really appreciated him and loved him. I just said, oh, well done. And then I moved, and I probably have 40 minutes and spent 30 of those 40 minutes on the other children who don't do the assignment. And he wants the attention because he probably has a crush on the teacher. So he started to do what those other children don't do, so that I can be calling his name too. Because he can't tell the difference. So you're wondering why you keep shouting on your child and your child did not change. You wonder how sometimes you know that this child is doing this misbehavior for attention. Because they realize that when they behave well, you don't give them attention. When they behave well, you don't even acknowledge it. Some of us don't acknowledge. We don't say well done to our children. We don't say, just say, no, Martin, don't say, now, Jebby, Obama shade. You're supposed to not do it. No. So when the child realizes that me, that I'm always a good girl, you always ignore me. It's those ones that are not good. That it happens to a lot of first children. It happens to that. The middle child syndrome comes as a result of lack of attention. And you don't see your child not doing something. Now they say middle child syndrome, no shade. Middle child syndrome, when you look at the psychology of it, is that the child is feeling like they're not the first child. First children, normal, they're the first children. They have their own role. They're, it's like their role is already set for them. They're not confused on what to be. The last children are always one with baby. The middle children, they don't know where to be. They don't know who to be. And a lot of times it affects them. Sometimes they will withdraw. Sometimes they will. It is attention. And so if you are always too negative in your child may continue to do it every time they need attention from you, or they may withdraw from you. And you need to, beating children doesn't change anything. You get to a point. I remember telling my mom when I was in just 3, she wanted to beat me, and I was like, oh, this one that you want to beat me with, me that they're using 10 belts to beat me in body, now so you want to use 1 belt to beat me. That's what I told my mom. Yes, because they are beating all the beats out of my life. It has become normal, and that's what happened with all the shouting. After a while, your child will just say, she will shout. My mom, she will shout. Even if you do the right thing, she will still shout. Just my mom. Especially for those of you that are perfectionist parents. But when you begin to come down to the level of the child, to come down to listen to what exactly were you thinking when you did this. So my staff, most times when they start working with me and they do something and I'm asking them for why did you do it? In the beginning, they didn't know that I actually wanted an answer. They won't talk. They'll just be looking at me like this. And I want to know the why. I want to understand the why. They didn't talk because they're coming from a place where nobody ever asked them that question. So they can do. And when they get asked, the person, oh, so you want to even tell me why? Oh, so that's the reason. I want to know why so that I can have a resource to correct them from. I want to know why. So my little Mariam sat here the other day and she told me, you did not keep your promise. And she said it in a very rude way. But I smiled and I asked her, what promise? Normal like this. After mama, I would show her, look for something, I just throw it on her head. Who is your mate that you're saying don't keep your promise? That's the first thing that came to my mind. Then I calmed myself and I smiled and I said, what exactly was the promise? And she said, you say I watch cartoon if I did this. I said, no, I didn't promise you that. You made the assumption that if you sat there and you did the right thing, I will show you cartoon. I did not make that promise. However, because you've been a good girl, I will let you watch it. This is me having a conversation with a 5-year-old. I needed her to understand that the promise was in her head. I didn't give it to her because I also want her to not grow up thinking adults don't keep their promises. There were so many things to teach in that moment. And so it was important that we had a conversation. Positive parenting means that she needs to understand where she sits, and I need to understand her, and we need to come to a middle. And I remember putting on my status, and people were like, hey, see her mouth, like, can't you just, if I were, you are patient, or if it's me like this, I will use cane to beat her. If I beat her, she will still have that thing in her mind that I didn't keep her promise. So I wouldn't even know. I would just get out, stop sulking, just get out. I hate it when you sulk. If you can't tell me what you want to tell me, she doesn't even, a lot of times, especially for children younger than 7, they don't even have words to describe what they are feeling. So a lot of times we are the one who will not only validate it, we will explain it to them. And I find that most times when I explain something to her, she gets it. Every time I explain something to her, she gets it. And the next time she doesn't do it. Like, oh, why would I explain myself to a 5-year-old? Actually, they will understand if you speak their language and come to their level. Number 6 is enhances mutual respect. And that's the last one. And this one is key, especially for those of us parenting teenagers. Mutual respect is key. See, me asking her, why do you think that? Why do you say that? When did I say that? It's because I'm respecting her, allowing her to express what she is feeling. Her emotion is valid. What she's feeling is valid. Is it true? No, but does it make it invalid? And so when she says, oh, you promised me, that was yesterday. Yesterday promise me. Today, like this, we have not made a new pact today. I have not made any promise to you today. Sit down there, or you go over to the reception and wait. I am busy right now. And that's what I did. I'm like, oh, I cannot give you my laptop. I can't give you my secretary's laptop. I can't give you any laptop because we are working. Could you come back later when we are not working so that you can do it? And I explained that the reason I'm not giving you is because I'm busy with it right now. Yesterday when I gave you, was it not in the evening? Yes, it was in the evening. It was even at night time. It was in the night that I gave you now. We have closed. So come back again. And then she sat there, smiled. And later I'm like, okay, one of the laptop is not working. Could you help me play cartoon for her? Because she has been a good girl. And I told her why I'm playing the cartoon for her. I'm not playing cartoon for her because what she said worked. It's not she didn't emotionally blackmail me. And I told her, because you have been a good girl, mashallah, well done. Who's not using the laptop? I say, oh, somebody's not using, okay, could you help me play cartoon for her? Well done. You're only watching it for 30 minutes. So after 30 minutes, she's collecting her laptop back. And when it was 30 minutes, it's 30 minutes, collect it. Oh, I'm not ready. 30 minutes. The deal we had was 30 minutes. There's no fight. You need to show them respect. No matter how young they are, they deserve respect, especially when you're dealing with teenagers. One of the things I found with teachers teaching teenagers and parenting them is that we treat them like children. But you know, they are adults now. Their brain is demanding the same thing that an average adult is. Are they worth it? Maybe not. Maybe they have not done anything to deserve it, but you should respect them. They're human beings too. If you want them to be respectful adults, you must show respect to them. Showing them respect doesn't mean they have to get away with every nonsense. It does mean that you validate that they have a voice, they have a right to be listened to, they have a right to be appreciated for their part, they have a right to have a safe space. I mean, I'm your mother, I can see you without clothes. The moment your child is saying, mommy, I'm dressing up, respect that. If the moment your child is asking for space, you must respect it. You cannot have space in my own house. So she's not asking for space in your own house. She's asking for personal space, and she deserves it. She deserves it. And that's that. Positive parenting is not beans. That's my conclusion. It is not beans, but it starts with a mindset shift for you as a parent. It starts with a mindset shift. I had to shift my own mindset. I had to understand that, for instance, teenagers are buluk, they have become adults. Whether we want to accept it or not, they have become adults. I have to remind myself as a teenager the things that used to frustrate me with what adults used to do. They used to disrespect us. They used to invalidate what we thought. I had to tell myself that I cannot do it to the next person, teenager. For the toddler, I had to understand that what I pour in a cup is what I'm going to meet there. If I want her to respect me and the people around me, I need to show her what respect means. And the best way to show her what respect means is to respect her. It is a lot of work and a lot of things to learn. And let me tell you the worst part of it, you're going to make mistakes along the way. You will unintentionally pinch that child. You will bite the children sometimes. You will shout. But every time you sleep, you continue to remind yourself that this is you raising a child. You don't want your children to carry the trauma that you have carried. You want to raise a healthy child emotionally, psychologically, physically. You want your children to look at the world from a place of safety, of happiness. You want them to be confident. You want them to be good people. And you remember, for those of us that are Muslims, that was the way of the Sunnah. That's the way of the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And look at the amazing things he was able to do by just being a positive parent, not only to his own children, to his grandchildren, but also to his ummah, to his friends, to the people who surrounded him and helped him to grow Islam. If he wasn't such a positive leader, imagine if his legacy will still be here. And this is a legacy borderline on 2 billion people alive. Definitely there is something great in positive parenting, and I hope that you will give that gift to your children too. Thank you for your attention. Have a great day.
Jazakumullahu khairan. I was not expecting less, wallahi. I understand that. When I was telling you people that the person that is coming to come and deliver this lecture is going to wow us, you thought I was playing. We are not here to joke. Oh. If you know Queen of Awesomeness, she over delivers all the time and asks Allah to reward you abundantly, even beyond our expectation. Because honestly, you have done beyond my expectation. I was not expecting less, but always you always deliver extra, extra. So I don't know if there's any question. Please roll in your questions while we are trying to acknowledge our speaker. Everybody's saying Jazakumullah khairan here. They are thanking you. If you have any question regarding positive discipline, kindly bring them in. I'm coming. So please bring them in so she can attend to them before she leaves. Jazakumullah khairan for that. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Your fans are already here. Thank you. Thank you. We ask Allah to make it an huda for every one of us. Thank you very much. I love the fact that you're actually sharing stories. One of the reasons, one of the things that I love when we have people to present, to share stories. That way you can relate. You have used yourself as an example. That you yourself, you started from the place of the people in shade. This is just from the West. But when you reflect, when you went back again to start again, you realize that many of these things that we think that is from the West is actually our own, is ours. So we have a question here. We just need to make more research and learn. Okay. The question says, how do you deal with a child that likes to fight other children? It gets beaten up at times.
You get beaten up by other children. Is it by other children that is fighting, or by you, the parents? By you. That's why your child keeps fighting now.
I'm not sure. I hope the person responds. I hope the person responds.
If you are the one always beating the child, then you know, I said that I'm still learning how to manage my own nervous system. It's my reading material for the rest of the year is actually managing my nervous system, because the child doesn't know how to regulate his emotions or manage his emotions. So when people evoke certain emotions in him, the only way he knows is to beat them, and you continue to validate that. So by other children, he deserves it when other people beat him. But unfortunately, it becomes a circle. He's expecting the beating and he beats. So how do you help that child? I won't say that the case is so bad. I don't know how old the child is. I think that some people, especially for toddlers, when they are I said at a certain age where they are coming into the awareness of themselves and ownership of their space and the world, they fight, they beat. Some people are just like that. But it may take longer for you to help the child regulate his emotions. What you need to do is to help the child regulate emotions. A lot of times, young children, our young children have this phase. Toddlers have this phase between, 2, 3, that they call the terrible twos and the terrible threes, where they claim ownership of things. So this is my thing. If anybody should touch it like this, I collect it back, right? They drag it back. That they're coming into the awareness of themselves and the world and what belongs to them. They're coming into the awareness of their space in the world. So if your child learns to regulate the lack of safety by fighting, you need to teach him that there are other ways to feel safe. So he feels beating other children gives him a sense of that self he's coming into. He's coming into himself as a person. So the beating, whatever he's doing consistently that is frustrating him, is a form of communication, of communicating that self. So maybe the children he's always beating are always in his personal space, and his own way of pushing them back is to beat them. So you need to teach him that sometimes people will enter your personal space. You don't have to beat them. Sometimes you have to allow them in, hug them. This is not how to do relationship. You can't be beating anybody that comes into your personal space. Don't you two come to mommy's personal space? Do you not use mommy something too? Do you not hug mommy when mommy doesn't want to be hugged? Are you not sitting on mommy's lap by fire by force? So you use, he won't change overnight, but you will consistently help him understand the situation. Because what he's doing is doing it from the place of what he understood. It is not gene that has entered him. It is not, that's how they used to do in his father's house. Maybe that's how they do in his father's house, really. Maybe that's their genetics, the way that they regulate their nervous system or they regulate safety. You need to recognize that your child is trying to regulate something. He's trying to regulate something. That beating is a regulation of something. What is that thing? Oh, you may find out that other children may have the habit of actually coming too close and he doesn't like it. He may not like it. Maybe one thing you should do is to watch him in his natural space. Watch him. In fact, that's the first thing. Try to understand what is going on. A lot of times we don't seek to understand it. Just sit down and let him be and watch him with those children. You will find that there's a particular pattern. When you find that pattern, it is that pattern that you will use to correct. So when you find that the pattern is every time somebody, you will understand that it is every time somebody sits a certain way. That's why he does this. Every time somebody comes too close, every time somebody touches hands, there will be something. There will be a particular pattern. He doesn't beat all children. Unless he beats all children. Then what is it about all children that he beats them? So I hope that answers your question. And if you find that you are unable to help the child or there's some psychological thing, some children need help. They need to have psychological analysis. Some children may be on the autism spectrum. And one of the things with being autistic is that they cannot control. They are unable to control their nervous system. They are unable to control a lot of things attached to the nervous system or, the part of the brain, certain part of the brain. So you may need helping that child. But for an average child, once you are able to gently remind him, reinforce it, it is a behavior that will pass. It usually passes. But the way that we allow it to pass or it will help them pass is important, which is why doing it the positive parenting way is key. That is gentle. You have to be gentle. You have to seek to understand the child and the process and the pattern. And then with that information, you can come up with a gentle way to remind him. Luckily, the other children too are beating him back. So you can tell him that, can you see the mark on your skin? Do you like this mark? So don't beat people. Talk first. Don't beat. Talk with your mouth. Don't beat. Don't beat. My third baby is a boy and he will be 3 in 2 months or so. My question is a bit stubborn, and when you tell him to stop doing something, that when he will continue doing and his senior brother and sister beat him up, they need to stop beating him up. Your child may find joy. Sometimes the brain will be like, they have not beaten me today. What do I do? If beating becomes a norm, he will continue to do things that will get him beaten. It is something that I learned. I learned this thing like last week. Like, even in relationship, you find that people will continue to seek the same type of people that keep breaking their hearts because their brain keeps seeking that. It has become dopamine. Heartbreak has become your dopamine. Beating, your child may become addicted to the beating. So please stop. They should stop beating him. One of the things that I feel like we fail to do with younger children is letting them understand why they need to stop. Children have to buy into the why. So you're focused on don't do that, but he keeps wanting to do it. And the truth is that children do not have, a 3-year-old doesn't know how to regulate himself naturally. We are the one that will teach him self-regulation. Some of it will come from the inside. The older he gets, the more he learns self-control. But a 3-year-old doesn't know self-control. And so every time you beat him for it, he doesn't get it. Well, he doesn't get it. You're like, psychologically, a child becomes more at 7. That's why you say, the people that teach Montessori and education psychologists, they will say that the children become, start to form their personality from 2 years old, but they finally grow into their person at 7. So a 3-year-old is midway to growing into his own person. And so it's still like a soft clay that you can mold and keep molding. You need to let him understand the why. Instead of saying, stop touching the socket, tell him why the socket is going to shock you. I'm sure that every baby will see shock and shake. Don't touch the socket. Nope. Nope. In fact, one of the things you even need to stop doing is, instead of telling, oh, don't eat on the table, don't eat on the floor, tell the child what to do. What part of positive parenting is to provide an opposite reaction that you want. So the child keeps going to the socket. Why does he keep going to the socket? What's it there that he wants to touch? What is it there that he likes touching? Maybe he likes to play with the switch. Okay, don't play with this switch. It is dangerous, but I bought you a switch toy. A toy that has a switch, and you can press your switch box. Of course, there are children where you give them the toy, and they still go back. Most of us do not buy a toy that has a switch. Your child is playing with your phone or putting your charger in his mouth, and then you go and buy him a teddy bear, and you're wondering why the child keeps going to the charger. Because teddy bear and charger, they're not the same thing. They don't represent the same thing in the child's mind. You want to buy something. You want to buy those phones. Oh, this child is keep playing with your phone. You go and buy the child a phone toy. You will find that your own phone will have peace. And you can tell the child, this is mommy's phone. This is mommy's phone. And this is Abdul's phone. Abdul, this is your phone. And this is mommy's phone. Abdul, where's your phone? Yes, where's mommy's phone? That's when you would teach the child ownership. This is my phone. Do not touch my phone unless you ask me to. Always put my phone here. Where do you want to put your own phone? And you feel like, they will not listen. They will. Maybe not immediately. But when you're consistently doing it, one day you will find that your baby will say, Mommy, this is your phone. This is Abdul's phone. So if the child is playing with your phone, you now go. And some of these things too are also an opportunity for us to understand our children's natural talents. You understand that this child is always moving, unless the thing is dangerous or okay, he's playing with this thing. Oh, he always likes to go there. Do something about that. Child-proof the place and then give an alternative. Don't continue to say, why are you always eating on the floor? No, if you repeat the negative, that's what the child will remember. Eat on the table, okay? Always eat on the table. Don't complain about the floor. Don't even mention the floor. When he sits there, Abdul, where should you eat? Table. Very good. Table. 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 Repeat the positive one that you want. So don't let anybody beat Abdul. Don't let everybody beat Abdul. Make it very clear to other people they cannot beat Abdul. You yourself, stop beating the people that are beating Abdul. How do you do? Because let me give you an example. Because I know that children will actually, one of my friends said a child will beat her baby. When she beats the child, go and beat the baby. I'm beating your old baby too. That's what the child will say to her. I'm beating your baby. Stop beating the children that are beating up to, and teach Abdul, give Abdul an alternative thing to do instead of the one that is doing to frustrate you. How do you deal with a child who looks at you all the time? You ask he's doing. He's constantly taking a peep at you. Some of this, some of the answers that I'll give are very blanket answers, and they may not necessarily be true to your child. Most times, working with kids, we don't usually like to give blanket answers because some of it may not be necessarily correct. Like for instance, now, if I find this child always looking at you when he's doing something, it could be that the child is afraid of making mistakes, and they keep looking at you to guide them. They're looking at you to guide them. Especially if you're a perfectionist parent, your children will be afraid of making mistakes. Your children will be afraid of doing things by themselves because they don't want to make mistakes. So I had a child here a couple of years back, and the mother says that he's always seeking, he doesn't do things unless you validate it. And then when the child came here to the center, I saw it. If you give him 10 questions, he will do 2, come and show you, and go back. Do 2, come and show you. And then last time I told him, nope, go and do all the 10. And then he was fidgeting the first time. And I insisted, if you don't finish, go and do it. You need to trust yourself. And that was the goal that we did. I kept saying, trust yourself. You need to trust yourself. So when I was going to talk to the mother, I had to talk to her that your child, you are a perfectionist, and your child's self-esteem is on the brink because he keeps looking to you to do something because he doesn't trust himself to do it well. And the problem is that you have shown that you have no trust in him because you have raised him to come and be showing you everything he's doing. You may think that I'm trying to help him to not make mistakes. He needs to make mistakes. He needs to learn to trust himself. When they make mistakes, you correct them that, oh, this is good. Out of 10, you got 7. Mashallah, well done, well done. Do better next time. No, let's correct the 3. But having the child coming to show you all the time so that he doesn't make, he's not going to help. The child may be looking at you because he's afraid he will make mistakes. Because maybe you are somebody that will yell when he makes mistakes. You are someone that will scold him continuously when he makes mistakes. So you have to watch yourself with him. How are you with that child? And you need to teach the child to trust himself. Trust yourself. I don't even know why parents don't like their children making mistakes. Go hear me. Mistakes are part of the process. You and I make mistakes all the time. That's why there's eraser. If you find that your child is always making mistakes, let him use pencil to do the assignments. In fact, sometimes I don't even like, even using that pencil. In some schools that we teach, they'll say they are using pencil. I say, no, they're not using pencil. They're using pen. They're in primary 3 and they should use pen. But what if we make mistakes? Mistakes are part of the process. When you make a mistake, leave it there and go to the next page. I need you to know that it's okay to make mistakes. So your child may be afraid of making mistakes, and you need to check yourself. How are you with that child? And show that you trust him. Let him. My question is, how do you instill discipline in toddlers so that when you go out with them, they do not act like spoiled brats? I'm sorry, what discipline are you instilling in toddlers? They're toddlers. They're spoiled brats. They're allowed to be spoiled. When I see the way some toddlers behave when their parents bring them to a gathering, it disgusts me. They tell the kids to sit or do something, and they don't obey, and they just keep jumping around. So I don't want to hear or beat the child from home. How do we make? I'm assuming that this person has never. You don't have a toddler. That's why you think, Sister Shakira. I'm done reading it. The thing is covering my face. I'm assuming that you don't have a toddler. Toddlers are allowed to jump around. Let me tell you about toddlers. Let me tell you, they cannot sit. They're not wired to sit down for up to 10 minutes. If you have a toddler that sit down for 10 minutes, now tell the child to sit down, and that child sat down for 30 minutes. You need to go and check whether that your child is not autistic or on any spectrum. No offense to parents raising autistic children. No offense. It is really not that. It is a situation of our lives, and all of us are dealing with it one way or the other. There's autism in my family, and I'm preparing. As much as you're like, oh, I don't want to have children that have it, it could happen to me because it is in my family. It's like in my immediate family. One of my brothers is on the spectrum. Not in a way, in fact, his own is worse. So for some children, you will know immediately. For my brother, you will know. In fact, he was diagnosed as an adult after years of struggling with behavior management. diagnosed as an adult. So even for people whose children are of yourself, they're the lucky ones. Because a lot of us will say, we have them in our family, like uncles are, my uncle, what come I back home? It could be on the spectrum his whole life and nobody saw it because there's no awareness for it. Now, back to your talk. There's no toddler that will sit down. People let it vary. Like I said earlier, they do not have self-discipline. There's no that thing, that part of the brain that controls someone, that allows you to, they don't even remember. Sit down, their attention, they're naturally attention deficits. We don't worry about attention deficit in children younger than 7. We don't worry about attention deficit. We look at the pattern. If the pattern is far from the normal, then you start to worry. But when it comes to a child being attention deficit, I don't worry about attention deficit in any child that I work with until they're like 8. And then it becomes abnormal because by that time, with positive reinforcement at home and in school, the child should have learned self-control. So when I meet a child at 8, 9 that doesn't have self-control, self-discipline, that can't sit still for 10, 15 minutes, I begin to worry. But children younger than 7, that part of their brain has not developed. I'm sorry. Now, you may meet some children that are gentle by nature. You know, my aunt had a couple of kids like that. If you put them on the floor, touch them about it, there's nothing wrong with them. They're just like that. But majority of children are not like that. Unless you want to throw a party that you don't want kids in, it is normal for children to jump around. You need to wire yourself to allow it. I remember my business advisor coming to one of our grand finale, and he left early. And then when I saw him a week after, he told me that all those children, they were just jumping around. They were just making noise. And I was smiling. And he looked at me and said, why are you smiling? I said, because that's what children do. And said, bother me. The noise doesn't bother me. They're supposed to make noise. It is healthy for them to make noise. It is healthy for them to run around. They are loud. You should allow them. I don't have any strategy for you. Only now, if your children are now destructive, if they are now running around the party biting people, doing something that is antisocial, running around is not antisocial. Not sitting is not antisocial. Stop being annoyed at those parents. They can't control it. The children can't control themselves. Nobody can control it unless they have so warm. I mean, the hadith that I read to you earlier of the Rasul's grandson on his back while he was praying. And he was patient enough to let the child chill there. You don't have anything, but they do. He will kill me here. You just want to kill yourself. They're like that. He will still do it tomorrow. Wallahi, he will do it tomorrow. If you like beating. The only thing that will make him stop doing it from beating is that you have traumatized that part of his brain. It is trauma. It is not nature. It is not natural. It is not instinct. It is trauma. It built a traumatic nature of, it built an instinct of, if you go there, they will beat you. He hasn't learned anything. He doesn't know why he shouldn't go there. He just knows that he shouldn't go there. And it will show another thing that he does wrong. Can you please share some discipline consequence for 5 to 7-year-olds apart not watching cartoon? One of the things you can do is to have the children. I don't understand why not watching cartoon is on your discipline list. You should definitely reduce television for your children. But if you feel that not watching cartoon is the only thing that works for your children so far, because at 5 to 7, they're almost their own way, and that's what you would do. How do we choose positive discipline? We choose the thing that matters to the child and is appropriate for the punishment. I don't know what matters to your children. What will matter to my children may be different from your children. But avoid things like, mommy doesn't love you. Mommy doesn't love you. Avoid self-esteem, things like that. But if, for instance, if I say, I can't even say don't give them food. But if I say don't give them food, for instance, and you have a picky eater that doesn't want to eat at all, it will work. So what will determine the discipline that will work will be the child itself and what matters to the child. For some people, if you say, for extrovert like myself, if you say sit down in one corner, it's a big punishment. Sit down, okay. Sit down for 30 minutes. Punishment is me. Don't talk. If you tell me, don't talk. There's this punishment I do for my, for my kids. I will say we're having a silence challenge. whoever doesn't talk for 10 minutes, whoever doesn't talk for 10 minutes gets something. So one of the things that we do with positive parenting is that we don't naturally punish. Like we don't punish, we usually do positive reinforcement. So we say that if you do not talk, this is what you get. Rather than saying if you talk, I will beat you. If you do not talk, if you do the right thing, you get a reward. That's the best way to go about it in positive parenting. I don't have a list of punishment to give you because punishment is something that you avoid punishment. You give consequences. And I cannot tell you these are the consequences that work because I do not understand the dynamics of your house. What will serve as an appropriate consequence in my house may not serve as an appropriate consequence in somebody's house. Stop watching cartoon matters to a child who loves watching cartoon. When you have a child like myself that would rather read, okay, thank you. Not watch cartoon is a punishment. For that kind of child, seizing the book may be the punishment. I'm not going to let you read this book. This new book, I'm not buying you a new book until you start cleaning your room. That child, mommy, now you have cleaned it. However, don't make it like that. In positive parenting, we don't do that because when you do that, it makes it as if, oh, when I'm good enough, they will do this. And then you become good enough in life. When they grow up, like, for instance, or like, oh, I was a virgin and I'm married and my husband is bad. And then my friend that is not a virgin, our husband is good. What kind of life is this? That came from people telling us when we are good, when we do good is when they will not see something. I don't know how to explain it. So what you can do is to not punish. Sit your children down, do a meeting. These are our family values. These are the things that I need you to start doing. These are the ways you will start doing. These are the ways I will support you to do it. Because sometimes we as parents, we don't support them to do the right thing. Children need support. One of my clients said, oh, why must I remind her all the time? And I said, you have to remind her. She's 8 years old. She's not an adult. She's not 30 years old. You have to remind her. So your children, like, why should they not know? She might have reminded her yesterday. You have to keep reminding her until it becomes her. So you have to, like, wrong now. Why should I remind her? It's not wrong. Keep reminding them. Support them to do the right thing. Support them. I'm not going to say reward them all the time. Neither would I say punish them all the time. But tell them what the right thing is. Now, if there must be a consequence, in positive parenting, you and the children need to come to an agreement. When you don't do this thing, what is the punishment you want? You choose. You don't wash your plate on time. What's the punishment? Then you put it there. You do a post-tag bagada like this. When you don't wash the plates, this is what is not done. And every time, we don't set our children up. Because some of us would like to set them up in any soft. We don't set our children up. We support them to do the right thing. Remind them. This is not a prison. This is not Squid Game. This is not rat and mouse. Remind them to do the right thing. And then remind them all the time. Madam, you know that you are supposed to watch cartoon today. What will make you not watch cartoon? If I don't watch the plate. So what are you going to do? You're going to watch the plate. Very good. Do you need me to remind you to watch the plate later? Okay, mommy, please remind. And you'll be shocked that your children will say, mommy, okay, tell me when it's 10 minutes to TV. I will do it. Mommy, wake me up when it's due so that I can do it. Have conversations. Support them. How can I support you? There's something my mom does that I thought is different, but it makes sense. My mom will go to the sink, even for the 16-year-old washing plates in her house, and clean the plates, remove all the dirt. She will arrange. She did it for us. Like some people, I went to my aunt's house when I was doing a media, and when she sees me arranging the plates, cups, plates, spoons, she'll say I'm wasting time. And I told her that that's the way we do in our house because it eases it for us. Our children don't like to wash plates because even me that was arranging the sink, she was abusing me. You will want to wash plates in my house because they will arrange it for you. Cups, they would have cleaned up everything. She will clean up everything. What is she doing? Making the task easy. It's part of positive parents. Support your children to do the right thing. My 3-year-old have lasted for 10 to 20 minutes. Is either doing his own work. How do you do with a 3-year-old that likes reading? I don't know. Where am I starting? Is either doing his own work or watching? Okay. When they are watching cartoons, they will sit longer. Why? Because it is colorful. It is catchy and it is changing. You are the one that think that and maybe they can sit for 1 hour to watch cartoon. If you notice, the cartoon has different things that is changing. So the attention deficit. But the people who design those cartoons, they're different colors, different sounds. You will find that, and then it is also another thing that cartoon has for most children is that it's also they can predict it. Predictability is also something that young children need. For some of us, everything we're always changing the goalposts for the children. Today they can watch in the afternoon, tomorrow they must do it in the night. You can't change goalposts for young children. It is confusing and frustrating for them. But the cartoon, they know that this is the character. It is stable. It has stability. It has changing colors that hooks, and then there's storytelling too. And storytelling is something that is powerful for the human brain. When the human brain is listening to a story, a part of the brain lights up. And that part of the brain lights up a whole deal in your children. So that's why their attention is hooked at that thing. We may need to apply some of those principles in our teachings too. Give examples, tell stories, repeat over and over. When you listen to some of those cartoons they watch, you find that there is a lot of repetitive words. There are a lot of gentle, the way they say gently. It's different from the way you are always shouting and talking too fast and easily frustrated. How do you deal with a 3-year-old boy that likes reading and he will read in such a way that you must repeat after him? And if I don't, serious guy will start and say, Mommy, say A for apple, this and that. Because that's the way they're teaching him in school. They teach them through repetition. That's the way that he is learning to learn. That's the way they teach him in school. Now, the teacher will say for apple and say, oh, yeah, repeat it. And children will repeat what they are being taught. What you need to do is to be gentle and repeat after him. However, you can ask him that, Abdullah, Mommy needs to read our own thing now. Come back at 1 p.m. and we will read together, okay? And then when he comes back at 1 p.m., tell him that, Abdullah, Mommy, you see the big hand? When the big hand is on 12, we're going to start now that the big hand is on 12. When the big hand gets to 15, Mommy has to go to the kitchen to do something else, and then you'll be reading by yourself, okay? So I'll read with you for 15 minutes. So when you read for 5 minutes, tell him, Abdullah, is it as the big hand gets to 12, to 15? It says no, or is it 15? To 3? It says no. Good. So Mommy still has 10 minutes. Let's go on. What you're doing is that you're preparing him to the end of your engagement. If you end the engagement abruptly, he will cry. But when you prepare him, it allows for stability. It allows for safety. See, that's safety.
Trust.
That he knows he's ready to end. We don't do that for our children. We just tell them, say, we sure you don't know that he has been watching. If you tell your child 1 hour, let him know what 1 hour means. A 3-year-old doesn't know what 1 hour means. But if he can read the opinion on the clock, 1 hour means when the big hand gets to 6. Okay? So be watching it. And at intervals, you will tell him, Abdullah, where's the big hand? Oh, it's on 3. Has it gotten to 6? No. Can you? Okay, so keep watching. Remember that what? You're going to stop. When are you going to stop? When it gets to 6. When are you going to stop? Repeat it 3 times. When you repeat it odd times, really. 3, 5, odd times, they remember that easy. When you prepare their mind, they will eventually, it's eventually, and this thing will not work overnight. Wallahi, it will not work. It is something you have to do over and over and over, but I can promise you that it will eventually work. May God ease it for you.
Thank you very much for this session. Talking about time, my son has been disturbing me about time since. I told him I was going to end by 4:30. He came disturbing. Mommy, it's already 4:30. He came back. I said, give me 30 minutes extra. He has come again. Mommy, tell them now. Stop it now. It's already 5:06. 5:06. Stop it now. And you're not even following what you are saying. So that's the way children are actually. So you can keep to our words and just apply these things consistently. They are going to disturb us less. Since morning, I've not given him the appropriate attention I'm supposed to give him because of this conference. So it's asking for his own attention. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you very much for joining us. We plan to spend 1.5 hours here, but look at the time now, we'll spend more than 2 hours. Jazakumullah khairan, everyone. Kindly, please, if you have any question, you can drop it. She's actually going to respond to your question in the comment section, and you can read up later because we are out of time already, and I need to go now. Jazakumullah khairan, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Tomorrow again, we continue our session. Okay. I don't know. I might need to leave now. Maybe perhaps she can continue the session, but I think she's also very busy. Time is gone. Thank you very much. She will respond to your question in the comment section. Tomorrow again, we'll continue 11 a.m. for tomorrow's session. Do well to make it a time with us. Jazakumullah khairan, everyone. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.